Today, we unravel the enigmatic life of Hatshepsut, Egypt's forgotten female pharaoh, a visionary ruler who defied ancient traditions, orchestrated groundbreaking expeditions, and left behind architectural marvels that still puzzle historians. In this captivating journey through her world, we'll explore how she ascended from a royal daughter to regent and ultimately full pharaoh in a society dominated by male kings. The untold secrets of her prosperous reign, filled with innovative trade missions and monumental constructions, and the lingering mysteries surrounding her death and the systematic erasure of her legacy from Egypt's records. If stories of ancient Egypt's hidden power players fascinate you, like and subscribe to Ancient Chronicles HD now to never miss these deep dives into history's greatest enigmas. Hatshepsut's story begins around 1508 BCE, in the heart of Egypt's 18th dynasty, during the New Kingdom period, a time when pharaohs were seen as living gods, bridging the mortal world with divine forces. Born to Pharaoh Thutmose I, a warrior king who expanded Egypt's borders through conquests in Nubia and Syria, and his principal wife, Queen Ahmose, Hatshepsut was the only child from this primary union to survive infancy. This positioned her uniquely within the royal lineage, as ancient Egyptian succession often favored direct heirs from the chief consort to maintain the purity of the bloodline. From her earliest years, Hatshepsut was immersed in the rituals and responsibilities of royalty. By the age of 4 or 5, she was appointed as God's wife of Amun, one of the most prestigious religious titles in Thebes, the spiritual capital. In this role, she performed daily ceremonies at the grand Karnak temple complex, rituals believed to sustain the god Amun's favor, ensuring bountiful Nile floods, fertile lands, and protection from chaos. These weren't mere symbolic acts. In Egyptian cosmology, failing such duties could invite disasters like droughts or invasions, making her position a blend of spiritual authority and political influence from childhood. Her upbringing added layers to this enigmatic life, as royal children in ancient Egypt often faced a structured yet perilous existence. High infant mortality rates meant that queens like Ahmose maintained emotional distance, delegating daily care to trusted wet nurses. For Hatshepsut, this was a noblewoman named Satra, who handled everything from soothing fevers to overseeing early education in hieroglyphs, mathematics, and court etiquette. Satra's role humanizes Hatshepsut, reminding us that even future pharaohs started as vulnerable children in a world where survival to adulthood was no guarantee. Growing up amid the opulent palaces of Thebes, with views of the Nile's life-giving waters and the distant cliffs that would one day house her eternal monuments, Hatshepsut absorbed the intricacies of power. She witnessed her father's military triumphs, which brought tribute from distant lands, and learned the importance of diplomacy alongside force. By her early teens, around 12 or 13 years old, a typical marriage age for royals, she wed her half-brother, Thutmose II, solidifying her status as the great royal wife. This union, common in Egyptian dynasties to preserve divine bloodlines, placed her at the epicenter of the throne's future. Thutmose II's reign, however, proved short-lived and shadowed by health challenges. Historical records and later analyses of his mummy suggest he suffered from physical ailments, including skin lesions, an enlarged heart, and possibly a debilitating condition that weakened his rule. He ascended the throne around 1492 BCE, but died after just a few years, around 1479 BCE, leaving the kingdom in a precarious state. His heir, Thutmose III, was born to a secondary wife named Isis, a woman of lower rank from the harem, and the boy was only a toddler at the time. In ancient Egypt, a child king required a regent to govern effectively, and Hatshepsut, as the senior royal widow and stepmother, naturally stepped into this role. Initially, her position seemed temporary, focused on guiding the young Thutmose III until he reached maturity. But by year 7 of his nominal reign, Hatshepsut made an unprecedented declaration. She elevated herself to full pharaoh, adopting masculine titles such as King of Upper and Lower Egypt, Lord of the Two Lands, and even the Horus name Matkare, meaning truth is the soul of Re. This bold move wasn't entirely without precedent. Earlier female rulers like Sobek-Neferu from the 12th dynasty had briefly held pharaonic power, and Mernith from the 1st dynasty acted as regent or co-ruler. Yet, Hatshepsut's sustained grip on the throne, lasting over 2 decades, marked her as a true innovator in navigating Egypt's patriarchal structures. To legitimize her rule, Hatshepsut wove a tapestry of divine propaganda that added profound mystery to her enigmatic life. At her mortuary temple in Deir el-Bahri, intricate reliefs depict her divine conception and birth. The god Amun, taking the form of her father Thutmose I, visits Queen Ahmose in her chambers, impregnating her through a sacred fragrance that symbolizes divine intervention. This narrative framed Hatshepsut not as a usurper, but as a predestined ruler chosen by the gods themselves, a clever strategy to counter any opposition from priests, nobles, or military leaders. These carvings, preserved through millennia, offer a window into how she blended mythology with politics, ensuring her authority was seen as unbreakable and eternal. With her position secured, Hatshepsut redirected Egypt's energies away from the aggressive militarism of her father toward an era of unparalleled prosperity through trade, exploration, and monumental building. Unlike the conquest-heavy policies that defined many pharaohs, she focused on defensive stability, conducting limited campaigns in Nubia to the south and the Sinai Peninsula to the east. These operations weren't about expanding territory, but securing vital trade routes and mining operations for gold, turquoise, and copper, resources that fueled her ambitious projects. By avoiding large-scale wars, she preserved Egypt's manpower and wealth, allowing the kingdom to flourish economically. This shift marked a golden age where art, architecture, and commerce thrived, but it also raises questions. How did she maintain loyalty from a military class accustomed to glory through battle? We'll explore that through her strategic alliances and religious endorsements in a moment. One of the most iconic achievements in Hatshepsut's enigmatic life was her grand expedition to the land of Punt, undertaken in year 9 of her reign. Punt, a semi-mythical realm thought to lie in modern-day regions like Eritrea, Somalia, or even Yemen, was famed in Egyptian lore as a source of exotic goods and divine essences. No major voyage there had occurred for centuries, making Hatshepsut's mission a daring revival of ancient ties. Detailed reliefs at Deir el-Bahri illustrate the fleet of ships sailing down the Red Sea, laden with offerings like beads and tools to trade. Upon return, they brought back treasures that transformed Egypt's economy. Live myrrh trees, carefully uprooted and replanted in her temple gardens. Archaeological evidence confirms these imports through preserved botanical remains. Heaps of gold, ivory, ebony wood, incense resins, and even live animals such as baboons, panthers, and giraffes. These weren't just luxuries. Myrrh and frankincense were essential for temple rituals and mummification, linking the expedition to her religious legitimacy. A lesser-known detail adds intrigue. The reliefs include unusually realistic depictions of Punt's inhabitants, including their queen Ati, portrayed with pronounced obesity, elaborate hairstyles, and distinctive clothing like animal skin skirts. This ethnographic accuracy stands out in Egyptian art, which typically idealized figures to conform to aesthetic ideals of harmony and proportion. Why include such details? It suggests Hatshepsut's scribes and artists aim to document cultural differences authentically, perhaps to emphasize the expedition's success in bridging worlds, or to showcase her as a knowledgeable global leader. This voyage not only boosted trade, but also reinforced her image as a pharaoh who could summon wonders from afar, much like the gods themselves. Building on this prosperity, Hatshepsut launched an unprecedented construction program. commissioning over 100 structures across Egypt that still echo her legacy today. Her crowning jewel was the mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri, known as Djeser Djeseru, or Holy of Holies. Nestled against the dramatic cliffs of western Thebes, this terraced complex featured innovative ramps leading to colonnaded levels, gardens with imported trees, and chapels dedicated to key deities. Amun, the creator god; Hathor, the goddess of love and music; Osiris, the lord of the afterlife; and Anubis, the embalmer. The design blended funerary functions with divine worship, influencing later temples like those of the Ptolemaic era. Archaeologists have marveled at its engineering, using local limestone and sandstone to harmonize with the landscape, creating an illusion of the temple emerging from the earth itself. At the Karnak temple complex, Hatshepsut's contributions were equally transformative. She erected 4 massive granite obelisks, towering symbols of her devotion to Amun. 2 survive intact, standing at 97 feet and weighing hundreds of tons each, inscribed with dedications praising the god and her rule. A third, the famous unfinished obelisk at the Aswan quarries, measures 137 feet long and over 1,200 tons, abandoned after a crack formed during extraction. This artifact provides direct insight into ancient Egyptian quarrying techniques. Workers used hard diorite balls to pound channels into the granite, then inserted wooden wedges soaked in water to expand and split the stone. The site's preservation offers a frozen moment in time, highlighting the scale of labor involved in her projects. Lesser known among her builds is the Red Chapel at Karnak, a small but intricately carved bark shrine designed to house the sacred boat of Amun during festivals. Constructed from red quartzite, it featured detailed reliefs of rituals and was partially dismantled later, but reconstructed in modern times, revealing her emphasis on religious innovation. Further afield, she commissioned the rock-cut temple of Pakhet at Beni Hassan, dedicated to a lioness goddess associated with hunting and protection. Later admired by Greek visitors who renamed it Spios Artemidos, this site showcases her restoration efforts, repairing damage from earlier Hyksos invaders who had occupied Egypt centuries before. In a move that puzzled historians, Hatshepsut celebrated her Hebsed festival, a Jubilee ritual symbolizing renewal of kingship, in year 15 of her reign, far earlier than the traditional year 30. This event, involving elaborate ceremonies, athletic displays, and offerings, may have honored her father's legacy or quelled potential unrest by reaffirming her vitality and divine favor. Such festivals required immense resources, from food distributions to new monuments, underscoring her economic prowess. To summarize this prosperous phase, through expeditions like Punt and builds such as Deir el-Bahri and Karnak's obelisks, Hatshepsut crafted an enigmatic life centered on creation and stability, leaving artifacts that continue to reveal her strategic genius. But her representations add another layer of mystery. Early statues and inscriptions portray her in feminine attire, with elegant dresses and headdresses emphasizing her role as queen. As her rule solidified, however, depictions evolved to include male pharaonic symbols, a false beard strapped to her chin, a short kilt, and broad-shouldered physique. These weren't attempts to deny her gender. Hieroglyphic texts consistently used feminine grammatical endings and pronouns, but a deliberate adoption of kingship iconography to embody the ideal ruler. This androgynous style allowed her to navigate societal expectations, projecting authority while honoring tradition. Obscure personal details further humanize Egypt's forgotten female pharaoh, widowed young from Thutmose II, whose frailties likely limited their marital life. Hatshepsut navigated a society where elite women enjoyed relative freedoms in personal matters without facing public scandal. Speculation arises around her close advisor Senenmut, a man of humble origins who rose to become overseer of works, managing her vast building projects. Senenmut innovated in art, creating statues with hidden cryptograms, puzzles in hieroglyphs that encoded messages, and even constructed tombs near hers in Deir el-Bahri. His depictions alongside her daughter Neferure, whom he tutored, suggest a trusted inner circle. Hatshepsut groomed Neferure for prominence, bestowing titles like Mistress of the Two Lands and God's Wife of Amun, hinting at ambitions for a matrilineal succession. Tragically, Neferure's fate is shrouded. Her images were later defaced, possibly due to an early death or political shifts, leaving open questions about Hatshepsut's long-term plans. Hatshepsut's rule spanned approximately 21 years, ending in year 22, around 1458 BCE. Forensic examination of her mummy definitively identified in 2007 through a missing tooth matching one from a labeled canopic jar, paints a vivid picture of her final years. Standing about 5 feet tall, she became overweight in later life, suffered from poor dental health with multiple abscesses, and had long golden-dyed hair and red-painted nails, a sign of maintained regal appearance. Possible causes of death include bone cancer, evident in skeletal lesions, or complications from diabetes, exacerbated by a hereditary skin condition treated with black resin lotions now known to contain carcinogenic compounds. These details, drawn from CT scans and DNA analysis, humanize her end, showing that even divine rulers faced mortal frailties. Originally buried in tomb KV-20 in the Valley of the Kings, shared with her father Thutmose I to honor their bond. Her remains were later relocated during the 21st dynasty. This move, common for high-profile mummies, aimed to protect against tomb robbers who plagued the valley, hiding bodies in caches like KV-60, where hers was eventually found. Such relocations preserved many royal mummies, allowing modern discoveries to piece together her story. The most profound enigma in Hatshepsut's life is her posthumous erasure, a deliberate campaign that turned Egypt's forgotten female pharaoh into a historical phantom for over 3,000 years. Beginning around 20 to 25 years after her death, during the later years of Thutmose III's solo reign, specifically around his year 42 or 43, workers systematically chiseled her names, titles, and images from public monuments. Her cartouches were hacked away, statues toppled, and achievements reassigned to predecessors like Thutmose I or II. This defacement extended across sites from Karnak to Deir el-Bahri, leading to her omission from later king lists and chronicles, until 19th century excavations by pioneers like Jean-François Champollion and Howard Carter revived her name. Contrary to romanticized tales portraying her as a wicked stepmother overthrown in revenge, echoing fairy tale tropes, the evidence points to calculated politics rather than personal animosity. Thutmose III, who grew into one of Egypt's greatest warrior pharaohs, likely ordered the erasure to bolster patrilineal legitimacy for his son, Amenhotep II. By removing Hatshepsut's precedent as a non-bloodline ruler who ascended through regency, he ensured a smoother transition and diminished the influence of powerful female religious roles like God's Wife of Amun. Notably, inner tomb chambers and private inscriptions remained untouched, preserving her soul's journey in the afterlife according to Egyptian beliefs. This selective approach suggests pragmatism over hatred. An alternative perspective emerges from recent archaeological studies. Many of her statues were ritually deactivated rather than destroyed in rage. Workers broke them at symbolic weak points, the neck for severing life force, the waist for disrupting balance, following ancient practices to neutralize the supernatural power embedded in royal images. Fragments were then repurposed as fill material in quarries or foundations for new columns, with faces often left intact to avoid offending the gods. Dispersal patterns from excavations, such as those at the Metropolitan Museum of Art's collections, support this ritualistic interpretation. complicating the narrative of misogynistic vendetta and highlighting Egypt's complex interplay of politics and spirituality.
Recapping her twilight years, Hatshepsut's death from health ailments, followed by her body's protective relocation and the enigmatic erasure of her public legacy, poses enduring questions. Why wait decades to act if resentment simmered? And how did such a successful reign, marked by peace, wealth, and wonders, end in oblivion? These riddles underscore the precarious nature of power in ancient Egypt, where even the mightiest could be rewritten by successors. Hatshepsut's enigmatic life stands as a testament to resilience and ingenuity, challenging the sands of time with her enduring monuments and rediscovered story. From her divine-claimed origins and Punt's exotic halls to the architectural splendor of Deir el-Bahri and Karnak's soaring obelisks, she forged a path that blended tradition with bold vision. As we peel back these layers, her tale invites us to ponder what other forgotten figures history might conceal. If this exploration into Egypt's forgotten female pharaoh has sparked your curiosity, hit that like button, share with fellow history buffs, and subscribe with notifications on for more mysteries unlocked.